Hello and welcome to the Big EI event. I am the 8th and final presenter, and I'm really excited to be here with all these amazing speakers and to have been invited back for a second time. I'm going to be talking about getting started with AAC or early access, and this is also very timely because October is AAC Awareness Month. So it's very timely and perfect. So my name is Christina Royster. I am the owner and founder of On Words Therapy LLC. I'm a speech language pathologist and AAC consultant licensed in both Maryland and Washington, DC. There is my Instagram handle there at the bottom. So let's jump right in. What is AAC? That stands for Augmentative and Alternative Communication. And here's a definition here below from the United States Society of Augmentative and Alternative Communication. AAC stands for, it includes all forms of communication other than oral speech that are used to express thoughts, needs, wants, and ideas. So that anything other than verbal speech or oral speech or mouth words. What are some of those forms of AAC? This includes, and this is by no means an exhaustive list, but it includes gestures, so like pointing or even like a head tilt towards something. Facial expressions, I use facial expressions a lot more sometimes than I even intend to communicate. Sign language, so that includes American Sign Language as well as other languages or other dialects, and even modified signs like baby sign. There are pictographic symbols, so that includes pictures, photos, line drawings, any type of symbol or an image. And these pictographic symbols can be used kind of individually. So just like, those square pictures that you might use just by themselves or on a schedule, or they could be something in a book, like what you see here on the right in that red binder. So that would be more like a communication book. And that could be something that you use either for picture exchange, like PECs, or just something that you use to organize your symbols to use for other purposes. And sorry, you're gonna probably see a cat moving around behind me because one of them always knows that I'm on Zoom. So there are communication books, and there are even boards like you see here at the bottom, where it's kind of a board or one page that has symbols on it. So you can either carry it around, or you can mount it or post it on a table or something like that. And then there are also speech generating devices. So many of us know those as like an iPad or another type of tablet kind of device, but this also includes things like a switch or a button that you push and it makes sound. There are also speech generating devices that are controlled by eye gaze that are really cool. All the user has to do is look at something on the screen and it selects it and speaks it out loud. And I've used eye gaze devices even with very, very young kids. So it's pretty cool technology that kids are able to use. And I still also wanted to point out that eye gaze also includes even what I would consider a light text system. So like a frame, almost like an 8.5 by 11 or slightly bigger type of frame that might have pictures or symbols around it. And then the communication partner would hold it up and see where someone is looking, and that's their form of communication. So eye gaze could be high tech or what we call light tech or low tech. And again, that's not all the forms of AAC. And I also just wanted to point out that we all use AAC, not just those who may have a language deficit or need some help. Just like I'm talking with my hands right now, I text, I email, we all use AAC. We're all multimodal communicators. So what are the prerequisites to AAC? I get this question a lot from parents and families, but also from other speech therapists and school staff and teachers. Is this child too young, or at what age should a child be ready to start AAC? And the answer is that there is no set age. The earlier, the better. I always push for, if they're like, oh, well, this child is 18 months, can we start AAC? Yes, please do. And you may already be doing AAC, because if you looked back at the previous slide, remember AAC also includes just starting with pictures and some other types of systems that may not be like a high-tech system, which we're going to talk about shortly. But there are no prerequisites. So you don't have to be of a certain age. You don't have to have certain cognitive skills or abilities. A child does not need to be able to understand cause and effect. In fact, AAC can even solidify and help to make more progress on that understanding. And a child doesn't have to be able to discriminate between a certain amount of symbols or pictures before they're ready to try out a different form of AAC. So remember, if you're hesitant or if you're a little bit intimidated, not sure if your child is ready, they are. Try it and see how it goes. It'll probably be a lot easier than whatever system or kind of stab at communication you were taking before. So finding a communication system that is functional, this is so important. And I also just wanted to point out that functional is a relative term, because what some families may use at home in terms of their communication system with their child, like, oh, I've heard a lot of parents say like, oh, I understand all of his grunts, or I understand when he's making that gesture that nobody else understands. And that is a system that's functional at home, but the idea is that we want a system that's going to be functional in as many environments as possible. So we want that child to be understood in daycare, in school, or at the grocery store, at the zoo, wherever they may be, as much as possible. So a functional communication system to me is one that can be incorporated into their everyday life, that one that allows communication partners to be able to model, because that's how a child is going to learn how to use the device. Because we can't just, ask a question, then hand a child an iPad and say, okay, respond, if we've never shown them where things are or how to navigate it. So when you're asking a question, you can model like, oh, did you want the banana or did you want the strawberry? Whether that be a picture-based, a paper-based system or a high-tech system. So giving them those opportunities to see how to navigate is going to be the way that they're going to learn it. And also providing multiple opportunities. We can't just expect after one time that a child's going to know how to find that word or how to, pull off that symbol and give it to somebody. So multiple opportunities throughout the day, throughout lots of different activities is going to be key to making that system the most functional as possible. So how do we kind of get started? And what a lot of people don't realize, especially a lot of the parents that I work with, is that they can get started today. It doesn't have to be something that you're going to look into further down the line. So what many people would refer to as low tech, I also I prefer to refer to it as light tech. So Google Images. Google is a great resource to just look online, print out some pictures, and use those to start using for communication, of making choices or to communicate wants and needs. That's how you're going to find a lot of those foods and things like that. You don't need some fancy system to find images of that on Google. But you can also use programs like Lesson Picks, which is really affordable, or Board Maker. Those are systems that have preset symbols already in kind of like a bank or a library, and you can use that to make different boards or different resources and activities. There's also photos. Remember, you can use photographs and you can use your phone even. I've seen so many parents do an amazing job with taking pictures of the most important things in the environment, like favorite foods, favorite toys, and they'll title the album in their smartphone, in their iPhone, foods. And so all they have to do is go to the food album, and their child, because we know that these kids can swipe through and scroll through lots of different photos, whether we taught them really or not. So they can scroll through and make a choice, or even put it in that gallery view and just have them point to whatever they are wanting or whatever they want to communicate. So you can even just use your phone for on-the-go communication. Pictures, so things like a grocery ad, you can cut those out, or magazines, or the packaging for different foods and toys, things like that. You can cut those out and turn those into symbols. So you can get started with something like that right now. And remember, communication is not just asking for things we want. A lot of times we do start off with that, and that's great. But we can also use symbols to show things that we don't want, like, oh, I don't like anchovies. Granted, you're probably not going to be talking about that with your kid, but just as an example, you can show things that you don't like and comment on things about different preferences. So now we've talked about light tech. High-tech devices are also accessible. There are also something called mid-tech devices, but I'm not really going to go into that today. So high-tech devices, a lot of SLPs actually have access to most of the most popular apps in the market. With their ASHA number, they can get a professional license. If they have an iPad already, you can get access to a lot of them to be able to trial and see which one is a good fit for you. Vendors and reps of the different companies. So companies like PRC, Tobii Dynavox, Assistiveware, a lot of them have representatives for your local area that you can talk to, and they either might meet you or they might, send out some trial devices that will allow you and a speech pathologist to make the best selection for what is going to be best for your child to grow with. There are also local lending libraries. So either through universities or other private organizations, they'll have libraries that you can sign a device out for a month or two, which is awesome. And then there's finally like a lot of Early intervention agencies are affiliated with school districts, so they may also have an inventory of devices, or they may just allow you to get an AAC eval through the school district, and that can kind of be your access point to get a device. And I wanted to encourage you that you don't need, there is no set kind of, you have to try light tech before you move into high tech. I'm a strong proponent of trying high tech as early as you have access to it, and using both, because there's not always going to be access to a high tech system as well as a light tech system. So I'm a strong proponent of trying both as early as possible. So how do we implement it? We have this device, we have this system, we have these pictures. How do we use them? I get a lot of speech therapists saying like, I don't know how to do AAC therapy, or parents saying like, I don't know how to use this and how to work with my child and help them. But a lot of those same strategies that you've already been doing to help develop their language are going to be the same strategies that you use to implement their device or their system. So play, that is obviously going to be the most fun and engaging way to get that communication system in the mix and kind of in your daily, regular rotation of things that you're doing. So during play, whether you're, pulling your child in the wagon, do stop and go with their device or with those pictures, like, oh, we're going to stop, hold up that picture or push that button that says stop. And then give them some time, give them that wait time. And then if they don't indicate go, then you can say, oh, I think it's time to go, and point or gesture to that symbol, whatever it may be. Easy enough, right? You can just start with stop and go. I love doing that for lots of different things, and music as well. Or if you have a teddy bear, the teddy bear can go up and down when they're wake up. Oh, let's lay down, they're going to sleep. So those are just some examples, but there are lots of different ways to incorporate toys and games and all of that with a device or a system. Interactive toys, so things like pullback cars and bubbles, those stay in my bag, in my therapy bag, or just around the house pretty much. So having those interactive toys that allow for lots of communication opportunities, and they're just lots of fun, and it's pretty engaging. Routines, those are so important. So think about how many times you would say the word on throughout the day. Like, let's put on our socks, let's put on our shoes, let's put on our shirt, let's turn on the TV, let's turn on the lights, let's go on a walk. So think about how many times you might say the word on throughout the day. And that's how many times, and that's how many, models you can provide your child with throughout the day, which is really going to be the way that they learn how to use their communication system. And then finally, those natural interests, the things that they're already excited about and really motivated to talk about. Just like I'm not going to be excited to talk about astrophysics, your child isn't going to be excited to talk about something that they're not really that into. So using the things that they already really like is going to be the key. And that's not to say that we withhold those things or, hold them back in order to make them communicate or to force them to communicate. But incorporating that device into something that they're already loving, already wanting to do is going to be so important. And so finally, I want to talk about some customization, because I am part of a group called Diverse AAC, and we are 3 speech pathologists who really have the goal to try to diversify AAC, whether that be picture symbols, whether that be apps or different devices. And we have a YouTube channel and an Instagram account where we talk about different ways to personalize the system, because research has shown that a lot of not only just children, but even adults abandon their AAC devices and systems because they don't feel like it represents them and they don't feel like it really connects with them and their culture. So thinking about the voice of that device, if it does have voice output, does it sound like a child or does it sound like a 50-year-old man? I've heard that so many times with like a 2-year-old sounding like an older person. And if possible, try to change the voice or try to get someone else to record, like another child who's around the same age, to record in a kid's voice. Think about the skin tone. Does the device have, or do the picture symbols that you're using on your communication board, are they a wide variety of diverse symbols, or do they even have are they using pictures that represent that user? Because a lot of the devices even have settings where you can change it to either be a wide display of different skin tones, or you can choose a skin tone that represents your user. So that's something that can be really important. There's also the idea that many families speak another language at home or another environment. So if you are able to, try to get a system that you can use in multiple languages, and having the home language of the family on there is really important. And that goes for a communication board too. If you are able to get an accurate interpretation of the words that that family feels are important, please try to do that as much as you can. Thinking about the access method. So again, does the child need eye gaze? Does the child need to use a switch? So how do we need to customize a device or a system for that? The vocabulary words, are those words that are on that system important to that family and their culture? And finally, think about, is this a device that's going to be able to grow with the child? We don't want it to just be something that works just for now or just this month. We want it to be something that you can customize and continue to use with them as they grow and continue to develop, and hopefully keep making progress. So I think that concludes everything that I wanted to share today. Feel free to follow me on Instagram, follow all of these diverse AAC accounts, and reach out if you have any questions. Thank you very much.